All right, good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to give you a quick demo of how to get started on Lab 3, which is an introduction to Python. So the way to do this is, of course, as usual, start on Canvas, enter your course shell, click on the course content here, and then scroll down to week 5, and it's Lab 3 that we're doing this week. So click on Lab 3. And then it says to accept this lab on GitHub Classroom, you must click this link. And remember, if you click this link inside Canvas, sometimes it doesn't work. So you want to just right click and click open in new tab. All right, so once you open it in a new tab, it'll ask you if you want to accept the assignment. Of course, you click yes. And then it's going to create your assignment with a template that we've given you. The next thing you want to do is open up a terminal window. Reload, you will see Data301 Lab 3, and you'll have your own repository created here. You can open this up in a new window, and then you will have your repository here with your demo code, and then you can click on lab3.ipynb. That's the Jupyter notebook that will contain your lab instructions. So as you open it, you'll see that all of the instructions and all of the code will be done on this file. But when you open it up on GitHub, it'll just have the text here. So it's a rendering of the file of the notebook without any. You can't actually edit anything in here. So you'll need to actually clone this on your computer. So to do that, head back to the home page of your repository, click on code. Click on the copy button that will copy this URL, and then you can navigate to your directory wherever you want to clone Lab 3. Maybe, for instance, you have a directory called Data301, and then I go into my Data301 directory. I do an ls just to make sure that I'm where I am. I can do a pwd to check my current working directory. That's the current working directory. Things are good. So then I just do a git clone and then a URL. And there I have it. I now have my Lab 3 there available for me to work on. And then what I would do is I would open up a Jupyter Lab session here. Okay, so once I type in Jupyter Lab in my terminal window, I will then automatically in my browser will open up a Jupyter Notebook terminal here. Sometimes it'll ask you for a password here, so you can just type in your computer password, your user account password. All right, so you've got now a Jupyter Notebook window, and just to kind of orient you to what's going on, if you want to create new notebooks, you can create one in either Python or R. There's also a terminal that you can use within Jupyter Notebook, but we won't be dealing with that. So click on this button here, which shows you all the files that exist, files and folders that exist on the current directory. So whenever you open a Jupyter Lab session, it'll open in the directory where you executed that command, right? So here we executed in Data301 folder, so that happens to be the root that Jupyter Lab sees. Of course, there are other folders and directories on your computer, but because you started Jupyter Lab in that particular directory, that is what it considers its root. So we want to go into our Lab 3, and you might see other labs there, Lab 1, Lab 2, etc. All right, so we're in our Lab 3, and then remember the ipynb file is the file that we need to do to actually do our lab. Okay, so now we've got our lab notebook here. We can click this folder button to collapse the left sidebar, and then we can start working on this. So a couple of quick notes about how this file is organized. So you'll see that each of these are cells, right? So we talked about cells a couple of weeks ago when we first started talking about Jupyter Lab and Jupyter Notebooks. But we have these cells here, and when you click on the cell, it shows you which one is selected. And if you double click on it, it has this it has a syntax. So a single hash character, a double hash character, double stars, and single stars. So that's what that is called markdown format. It's just a nice and easy way for us to style our text without resorting to, Microsoft Word or Google Docs or things like that add on a whole bunch of other stuff to our text. It's just stars and hashes and underlines that sort of help us get the formatting that we need. So a couple things that you should know is that you can add cells whenever you want. So you can go, where is it? View. I usually use keyboard shortcuts here. So I can split a cell, I can move cells up and down, I can select all of them, I can cut them. But how do I create a new cell? Let's see here. One of these will let me create a new cell. Maybe I need to just do it using this button here. Okay, so this is a button that will let me create a cell below it, so I can add a bunch of cells. I can run some Python code in here. That's the default. Right here it tells you the kernel, so you can run Python code here, and then for JR in range 110 print R, there, run some Python code, and then in order for you to execute it, you can push this play button or shift enter. Okay, so there you have it. That's how you write your code, and then so have a read through the lab, and you can start wherever you see your solution here. That is where you can type in stuff. So for instance, I'll do the first question for you, or first part of the question. It says this part of the lab takes you through some of the fundamental components of Python, and the first is a loop. So if ELIF, which is else if or else statements, and so it's asking you to fill in the missing pieces of code such that the print statements make sense. So your print statement should be the name is more than 18 characters long. So what you need to do is write your code in here that would make this make sense. So you'll notice that when you do .format, it has the variable name. So you could do something like, okay, well, I'm going to replace this with name is, and then you read the print statement, is more than 18 characters long. So I want to get the length of the name vector to be more than 18 characters. So let's go ahead and do that. How would I do that? Well, the first thing I do is use the length function, and that will tell me the length of my string. And then it says is more than 18 characters, right? So let's see, do I use greater than or equal? Well, it says more than, not more than or equal to. So I'll do greater than 18, and then this code will run. What I suggest you do is to copy this code, open up another, create another cell, and then just test it, right? And rather than replace name, you can call it name2 to give it some test string. So you can add in something like, something here is a really long name. So this is going to be over 18 characters probably. And you can check that, you know how to do that. But let's see if this works when we do this. It's going to say name is not defined. Okay, well that's an error. It says it's a name error. So let's go back in here and see what's going on. It tells me the error is in line 4. If I click the cell and do edit, view, and then show line numbers, that will tell me all the line numbers for my code. And it says the line error number, the error is in line 4. I look for, oh, I see what I did here. I didn't call this name2. I want to run this in this loop in here. Name hasn't been defined. I'm going to call it name2. And then when I run it, it'll tell me that it's more than 18 characters long. If I want to actually check the length of it, I can also print that. I can say print len name2, and it tells me it's 54 characters long. Okay, so now that I know this part works, I can just delete the cell, and then I can go on to the next one. Same thing here. I try, and so now that it's an else if, you have to copy the if statement as well, and then try it on this particular bit of code. Okay, so you're welcome to play around with the name as you see fit to test this, but this is just another way of solving this problem. Okay, so once you're done, you sort of go through all the questions and answer them. Currently there's this bit here, your code here, that is where you're supposed to replace your logic. And if you forget what that is, you can always go back to the web page, the course content page, and it has the original code there. And you can always go back in your commit history to figure out what you did as well. So there's a bunch of questions in here for you to do to get you more comfortable with Python and some of the more basic components of it, lists, dictionaries. And then we're also going to be starting to work with some data using pandas. And yeah, so that's it. That's the lab for this week. And once you're done, there's a bonus question at the end if you want to try your luck at it. For those of you who have taken computer science or programming courses in the past, I highly recommend you do the dictionary to get used to the Python syntax, and if you haven't, that's fine, but you'll probably have your hands full with the rest of the questions. Okay, I hope this helps get you started on Lab 3. See you later today, everybody. Bye-bye.